Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. Want to take us back to one of the most painful, hardest days of my life. It changed my life for forever. It was a day that I dreaded, but that I also gained a lot of relief from. So the day of March 15th, 2022, this was the day I'd have open heart surgery. It was a day full of tension, fear, and like I said, relief. I'm going to share all about it. I'm going to take us through from the beginning to the end of the day of surgery, and I'm going to bring you to some of the most personal, tough times, moments that I've ever experienced. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Like I said, that morning, I obviously knew it was coming for about a week and a half, so I woke up that morning knowing exactly what was about to happen, but also not knowing what was about to happen. So I woke up that morning knowing that I was heading in for surgery at I think I was scheduled at 6 a.m. So got up, got everything together, got ready, did the normal morning routine, brushed my teeth, couldn't take medication due to having surgery. I couldn't drink anything, so we had been fasting, no water, no food for many, many hours. Got up probably 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and like I said, got everything ready and ended up walking out facing my parents. Obviously, they were nervous as well, maybe not quite as nervous as me, but they were very nervous as well, and you could just see that tension and nervousness in their face. It was tough walking out, looking at them, knowing what was about to happen, because they're my rocks. They are the people I go to for everything. They're the people I turn to in the hard times, in the good times, in the painful times, all of it. They're the ones I turn to. So it was a tough time. It was very quiet. We don't usually have a lot of conversation in the morning, but there's usually not that type of tension and, silence in the morning. So we get everything packed up, hop in the car, get ready to go. So basically the entire drive was silent. We drove, it's like a 20-minute drive from our house to the hospital that I was going to have surgery. So we got in the car and headed out, and the entire ride was silent. It was like nobody knew what to say, nobody knew what to talk about. It was just trying to keep everything under wraps. I kept trying to wrap my mind around what was about to happen. I was scared, but there was also a part of me that I just wanted to have it over with. I wanted to get it done and over with. So we finally got to the hospital. It was still obviously very dark outside. It was like 5:30 in the morning. Street lights lit up the parking lot. It was a very tough time. We all got out of the car. We parked, got out of the car, walked into the hospital together. It felt like the longest walk of all time. I mean, the hospital was here, the parking lot was here. It was maybe a 2-minute walk to the doors, but it felt like eternity. I really, like I said, this whole time I'm just so nervous, so anxious, so wound up that I don't even, I was just in a trance. I had no idea what was going on. So we walk up to the door, go in, go to the front desk, try to get checked in. The lady looks me up. She's like, all right, you're having surgery. You're going to go upstairs. But this was 2022. So there was still COVID rules, which I had no idea about. I had no idea COVID rules were still a thing. So we got up to the front desk, and she was getting ready to send me upstairs, and she was like, only one of your parents is allowed to go up with you. And I turned and looked at my parents, and they both looked at me, and it was like we had no idea what to do, because I wanted both of them up there with me. I wanted to see both of them as I was heading back to the operating room. I needed them. And my dad finally looked at us and was like, okay, I'll go sit in the car. Told my mom, you go up with him. He needs you more than me. So luckily he made that decision, because I had, like I said, I was in a trance. I didn't really know what was going on. I was just looking for anybody to just give me an answer and go with it. So my mom and I head upstairs. My dad walks outside, goes back to the car. We get upstairs to the surgery center, check in again, sat down. I couldn't really sit still. So I got up, excused myself, went to the restroom. This was the moment I opened the door, coming out of the restroom. The nurse is standing right there and was like, Kyle? I'm like, yep, that's me. And I see my mom getting up out of her seat, getting ready to walk back with us. And I'm like, okay, I didn't even have that much time to do anything. That's great. So head out of the restroom, go straight back with the nurse, get back to the prepping room, whatever you want to call it. I was stepping onto a path where there was no turning back. At that point, there was no turning back. You're walking back to the preparation room, whatever, like I said, whatever you want to call it, and at that point, you're in it. You're going. So, a lot of things were happening. Things were happening fast. I was back there. It felt like forever, but it also felt like it was like super fast. They had me change, got me set up in a bed. Nurses came in, were hooking me up multiple IVs, PICC lines. One came in to like basically shave all the hair off my body, from my feet all the way up to my neck. It was very strange. It was very like, it's just hard to explain. Like it was a very awkward, weird, nervous, strange time. So, as one nurse was shaving me, another setting up IVs, a few more people came in to introduce themselves. The anesthesiologist came in, introduced herself. One of the other main nurses of surgery came in and introduced themselves. The physician assistant came in and said hi, and they did some final prep. Stuck this like nasty, thick crap up in my nose, which was one of the most uncomfortable things of the surgery, especially the prep. So I had to sit there with this nasty like gunk up in my nose. Apparently it was supposed to help with like, it's like in some ointment that's supposed to keep like germs and keep from infections and stuff like that. So yeah, and after that everything was ready to go, and they told me, all right, sit here and we'll be back for you to take you back into surgery. At that point, I think a couple hours had passed. I was just, like I said, a lot of that was happening really fast, so I couldn't really, time was kind of going by weirdly. Didn't really know what time it was, how much time had gone by, but I knew there's a good amount of time had gone by. So finally, there was a knock on the wall. I hear the curtains open, and it was my time to go. A couple of nurses, I think there were two or three that came to get me. Got me hooked up, got my IVs all prepped up and ready for transport, and they started wheeling me out of the room and down the hallway. I looked over at my mom and said bye, and she looked back, trying to hold it together, and they wheeled me down the hall, and I'm getting worked up just talking about it, because this was such a emotional like just such a tough time, because I didn't know what to expect. In my mind, it was a 50-50 chance that I was coming out of surgery, even though they had already told me that it was a very good likelihood of success. it was looking at my mom. It was like, I don't know if I'll ever see you again. So, see ya. And, sorry. I wasn't ready for any of it. We got back into the operating room, and they wheeled me into this room, and it was like a TV show, movie. This massive equipment, bright lights, people moving everywhere, going back and forth. I mean, there had to be 15, 20 people in there. It was extremely intimidating, just craziness. The nurses moved me over by the operating table, got me switched over, transferred to the operating table. It was ice cold. It was hard. They started hooking me up to a million different monitors. One had an arm. One was working on my ribs. One was working on my neck. There were 4 people yanking me every which way. And then all of a sudden, the surgeon came in. He says hi, says what's going on, explained what would happen one last time, went over the whole surgery, what he was about to do. He looked down at me and was like, I'll never forget this part. He said, "Mr. Rust, are you ready?" And as a 22-year-old getting prepped and ready for open heart surgery, what else are you supposed to say? I'm like, I guess, let's do it. I really honestly couldn't even say anything. I just nodded and said, all right, let's go. He's like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and start the sedation now. So they started the sedation through my IV first. It was like everything around me just melted away, and one number at a time, everything was gone. So like I said, everything went black with the sedation, and next thing I know, I'm not going to get into this very much because this is a whole another episode that will be coming out soon, but next thing I know, I'm in a vision with my grandparents sitting in their living room, both grandparents who had passed away over the previous couple of years, and I'm sitting in their old living room of the house we sold 2-3 years ago with both of my grandparents sitting exactly where they were supposed to be. Everything looked the same, and it was the most beautiful thing in the world. But again, I'm not going to get all into that because that's a whole nother episode, and we could go down a rabbit hole. So next thing I know, I get sucked into another vision where I'm on a mountain in the desert with who I believe was Jesus or God. And like I said, I'm not going to get deep into that, but that was part of the whole surgery, so I got to get into it. The near-death experience part will be a whole nother episode, but yes, I did have a near-death experience when I was under for the surgery. I don't know if it was when they stopped my heart to put me on bypass or when it was, but I did have a near-death experience. So that was waking up in recovery, kind of the first maybe hour of recovery, and waking up right after surgery. And that whole process, it was a rough time. Like I said, I still get emotional talking about it myself. But later that day, probably after I woke up after that nap, the nurses came in, they were checking me, and one of the things they wanted to get done that night, before my parents left, was try to get me to stand up out of bed. In my mind, I'm thinking, how in the world are you guys expecting to do that? Like I just said, I was in the worst pain of my life. I felt like my body was crumbling. I felt like I was on fire. And they come in and say, yeah, we're going to get you to stand up out of bed. In my mind, that was impossible. But I had my grandpa in my head telling me, you got to push yourself. You got to do what the nurses and doctors tell you to do, because you're never going to get better if you think everything's impossible just because of the pain you're in. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. I was maybe 6 hours post-surgery, but they wanted to try, so I was like, all right. They got me to sit up, which was no effort on my part, because I went and tried to sit up, and it was the worst pain in the world, and I fell back down into the bed. And so they had to hold both arms, reach behind me, and pull me up, sit me up in the bed. They had to grab my legs and swing them off the bed, and they got me, scooted me to the edge as far as possible to where my feet were finally touching the floor. And boom, they grabbed both arms and pulled me up. And I slowly got up. I could feel myself starting to put pressure on the floor. And I could feel every fiber and every muscle in my body trying to work as hard as possible and just not wanting to do it. Within moments, my head started to feel like it was on fire. Everything started spinning. The room went white. My head was on fire. My whole body was on fire, and I could just feel my body failing. And I fell back onto the bed, into the nurse's arms, and they were like, "Okay, well, we'll take that, and we'll try tomorrow." So that was the whole process of trying to stand up post-surgery. It was not fun. Like I said, the whole room went white within seconds. My head and my whole body was on fire. My body just failed. My legs gave out, and I plopped back down on the bed into the nurse's arms. And yeah, that was really the rest of the day. The rest of the day was just resting. The nurses would come in and check on me, keeping me hydrated, asking me how I was feeling. And when visiting hours were over, my parents ended up having to go home. There was a couple nurses who came in and do some breathing work with me. They had this like little oxygen thing that you had to like suck on, and it would like measured your like inhaling power and pressure and stuff like that. So they came in a couple of times that day to do that. They brought me this breathing apparatus thing too, where I had to breathe in and out and blow and all that fun stuff, where it's like you, again, felt like impossible, but I just kept trying to push through it, push through the pain, push through it all. It was rough saying goodbye to my parents that night. It was rough. I mean, maybe it was probably 7-8 hours after surgery that they were heading out, and I was being left by myself, without my two people, without the people that I look for everything. And I'm in the worst pain of my life. I'm struggling. I don't know what to do mentally. I'm in a trance. Like, I don't know what's going on. And yeah, that was really the end of the day. I watched some TV. Nurses, like I said, kept coming in. The nurses switched. I got my night nurse. She was awesome. It was a rough day, to say the least. It was a rough day. The rest of the night, I couldn't really sleep. I was probably up till midnight, 1 a.m., just watching TV, talking to my nurses. Then I fell asleep for a couple hours, and I was back up at 3 a.m. doing breathing work, and there was really little to no rest, taking pain meds, trying to keep myself under some sort of pain threshold where I wasn't just absolutely dying and just falling apart. And yeah, that was really the day of surgery. It was, like I said, it was rough. I just got emotional talking about it. Yeah, it was one of the most dreaded days of my life. A day that I'd never hope on anybody. I'd never wish on anybody. I said that after surgery, that I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy because of the amount of pain I was in. And I had the minimally invasive. I can't imagine being cut down the sternum and cut open that way. I mean, I applaud the people who have gone through that surgery in the past and who still go through that surgery, because I just had the minimally invasive and it was rough. So, yeah, I was the youngest one on the entire floor by like 40 years. So, 22-year-old with probably a bunch of 60, 70-year-olds on the floor. So the nurses did like to come in and hang out with me for time while they were not doing anything, because I was a rarity on the floor. But yeah, that was surgery day. I knew the road ahead of me was a long one, was full of pain and suffering and hardship, and I didn't really know what it looked like. I didn't know what the future looked like. I didn't know what recovery looked like. I didn't know what cardiac rehab looked like. I didn't know really just what to expect, and I knew this was only the beginning of the journey towards recovery, and it was also the beginning of the journey that I didn't really realize that would change me and who I am for the rest of my life. Mentally, emotionally, I'm still dealing with things from that day, and I was a new person, and it's been hard to handle that, and I'm gonna get into that in episodes down the line. But yeah, that is surgery day. I appreciate everybody listening. Leave a like, leave a comment at the bottom for the algorithm. I'd appreciate it. Come subscribe if you want to hear more of my story. Go back and listen to episode 1 if you want to catch up for prep and how my heart condition was found. Go back and watch the first episode. And yeah, there's more to come for sure. In the next episode, I will be going deeper into the visions that I mentioned earlier. What I saw in those moments is something that I've kind of wanted to share for a really long time, especially with those who've wondered about near-death experiences, whether you are spiritual or not, whether you're religious or not. They're very interesting, and after experiencing it myself and doing research upon it and on the whole near-death experience field, it's very interesting. And after, like I said, experiencing it myself, it's something that I think everyone needs to hear about, and it's something that we need to talk about. So come join the Heart to Heart team March 16th, 2025 for the American Heart Association Heart Mini Marathon. I'm putting together a team, a community more so, to come out and support the cause of heart conditions. Me personally, I'm passionate about sudden cardiac arrest in youth athletes under the age of 25. Also, just anybody who's had open heart surgery under the age of 25, and anybody who's been through any of that, who unfortunately passed away from that. I'd love to talk to their family, friends, whoever I can get connected to. I'd love to get names and photos of anybody that we lost to sudden cardiac arrest under the age of 25 and put their names on a t-shirt and wear during that race, that half marathon. But yeah, come join us March 16th, 2025. If you don't want to do the half marathon, I am actually going to run the half and then circle back around, and the rest of my family, my mom, my sister, my dad, are going to walk the 5K. So I'm going to circle back around and walk the 5K. I'm hoping to bring my dogs with me. They're going to be all suited up in the Heart to Heart team apparel and fighting for the cause just like their dad. So yeah, I will see you all next time. Like I said, like, subscribe, follow, comment. I'd love to hear all the comments and all the thoughts about this story. So I will talk to you guys next time. Stay strong.